Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
This is the first major test of abortion rights since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade nearly a year ago, and the Biden administration is gearing up for a fight. At the center of all of this, conflicting rulings about access to the abortion drug mifepristone. This is a pill that's used in more than half of abortions in the U.S. It's been available for more than 20 years, but one conservative judge in Texas ruled to ban the pill, saying that it should have never been approved by the FDA in the first place. And this morning, the Justice Department is firing back, filing an emergency appeal blasting the decision as an extraordinary and unprecedented decision, insisting that it would severely harm women. And just as scathing was the reaction of more than 400 drug and biotech companies whose executives published this letter insisting the decision ignores decades of scientific evidence and legal precedent and lays the groundwork for banning any medicine. In the meantime, you have several Democratic-led states that are now taking matters into their own hands. They're stockpiling this abortion medication. Massachusetts, for instance, buying 15,000 doses, enough to last an entire year. But this is a legal fight that is only just beginning. It is widely expected to go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yes, it will go all the way to the Supreme Court. Why do we know that? Because you have dueling. We have gunfights with dueling interests. We have, now we have dueling courts. It is unbelievable. So you had the Washington State Court. I think his name is Timothy Price. I know his name is Judge Price. I think it's Timothy. He said, you must leave the status quo in place because there is no harm that's being done with the status quo. Okay, being the law of the land. There is no harm being done. In 23 years, there's no harm being done with mifepristone. Mifepristone is safer than insulin. Mifepristone is safer than, believe it or not, Tylenol. Mifepristone is safer than, wait for it, Viagra. Yeah. More people die after they take Viagra than do after mifepristone and misoprostol, which is the two-drug therapy for early pregnancy. Early, everybody, which is what you say you could tolerate. It's what you say you're okay with. It's what most Americans say is fine with them. And this particular judge is so out of line, this Kaczmarek dude. He is so far afield of what is American law that he literally just made up stuff. Now that, I've had a little time to spend with his writing, this is scribbling. I could have written a better opinion, and I'm no damn lawyer. I mean, this is so bizarre what he's saying. So first we have to deal with whether or not the people who brought this case have what we call standing, did they have the right to bring this case? Because, you would always say to somebody, were you harmed? And they would have to say, yes, I was, in order to pass muster with the court to even hear a case, right? Well, this guy actually says, he concludes that the people who brought this case, the plaintiffs, have standing because, check these words out. Check out what I'm about to say. This is so bizarre. Because they, quote, allege adverse effects from chemical abortion drugs can or might overwhelm the medical system. This drug has been on the market in the United States for 23 years. Before it was on the market in the United States, it was on the market in Europe. It was on the market in Europe since 1980. And the hospital systems were never overwhelmed with any people having any adverse side effects or any adverse reactions to these to this particular a pill. Okay, it just never happened. So it would be one thing if he was making these claims about a brand new drug. Okay, but he's not. Mifepristone has been on the market for 23 years. And if the medical system was going to get overwhelmed with people who had adverse reactions or side effects from mifepristone, the medical system would have already been overwhelmed because it's been on the market for a quarter of a century. Someone would have noticed by now, the way we noticed with COVID, that our medical system was overwhelmed. Yes. Like the way we had to build field hospitals, like the way we had to have refrigerated trucks outside of hospitals, like all that crap that everybody wants to pretend didn't happen, happened. Okay? And so these people have no standing because they are alleging something that never happened might happen after 23 years. And that is what he concluded. That's the reason why they have the ability to bring this case, because it might happen in the future after 23 years. Okay. The other threshold for a lawsuit is something I sort of alluded to the other day, is the statute of limitations, meaning the case has to be timely. The case has to be brought in a timely manner. And just like there's statute of limitations on, minor crimes and semi-serious crimes and, everything but murder basically has a statute of limitations. Now, I will tell you that rape had a statute of limitations in New York, except that E. Jean Carroll was able to make a case to the legislature in New York so that they said, you're right. Sexual assault, sometimes the victims can't come forward for a very, very long time because of the trauma of it. And the shame that's associated with it. And the fact that men think you're damaged goods if you say that you were violently assaulted sexually, because that's what rape is. It's a violent sexual assault. It's about violence, not about the sex, okay? Anyway, so there's no statute of limitation. That's why she's able to bring this into court. But there are statutes of limitations. We're all aware of them. And I looked it up, and there is a 6-year statute of limitations on FDA approval, on final FDA approvals. It's been 23 years. He said that's fine, that he could find a carve out because in 2016, there was some citizen petition about mifepristone in 2016, okay? There was some citizen petition, and it had nothing to do with the efficacy of the drug or the safety of the drug. It had to do with what the drug does. It had to do with people being upset about abortifacients. Once you started calling mifepristone an abortifacient, people all of a sudden were like, I'm against that. And so he decided that a citizen petition about mifepristone reopened the statute, the tolling of the statute. And so the statute of limitations began running in 2016. Well, it's still 6 years. It's 2023. It's still. Then he said in 2021, there was another citizen petition about it. And so in 2021, it starts to toll again. So they have plenty of time. This is the crap that's in this decision, okay? And the only way that this would have gotten the result that it got was if you shopped around for a sympathetic judge who uncritically accepted these crazy, messy, unbelievably stupid arguments. And they knew that they needed to file it somewhere near Amarillo because he's the only federal court judge there. He's the only one in the Northern District of Texas. The whole Northern District of Texas, which we think of as vast, because it is, has one federal judge assigned to it. Again, yesterday, I refer, pack the court. Pack the court. Anyway, in Washington state, a judge issued a dueling opinion, and he said, keep the status quo until this can be heard by a higher court, meaning the appeals court. Okay, he was referring to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is very conservative, but he said, keep the status quo because there's no harm being done with the status quo, but you will do irreparable harm to women if you deprive them of a safe and efficacious chemical abortion. You will do irreparable harm to them. And so now you have these dueling opinions. The Fifth Circuit is probably going to stay it. That's the best we can hope for. A response to that has to be filed tonight at midnight. Tonight at midnight, because DOJ asked for the case to be frozen. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to randyrhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.